Triangle Strategy is the latest tactical role-playing game from Bravely Default and Octopath Traveler producer Tomoya Asano. Co-developed by Square Enix and Artdink, this Nintendo Switch exclusive blends a branching narrative with weighty choices that will challenge your convictions and tactical gameplay to test your cunning on the battlefield, all packaged in a beautiful HD 2D art style and a masterpiece of a soundtrack. However, I did notice some frame rate fluctuations, and the voice acting highlights a small issue relative to the time the game was in development. But overall, Triangle Strategy is a splendid game that is well deserving of your time. Pray you mind your unit placement and leave your back turned to no one. Let's dive into my review of Triangle Strategy. 30 years after the Great Salt Iron War ravaged the continent of Norzelia, the three nations again find themselves in conflict. Serenoa Wolfort is set to marry Frederica S. Frost as a beacon of peace between nations, but a discovery in the Great Norzelian mines changes everything. The nations Glenbrook, S. Frost, and Hyzant squabble over resources, with House Wolfort caught in the middle. The decisions made along the journey change the course of history and provide an opportunity to right past injustices or commit new ones. I found the story to be spectacularly written, and the choices I made with my party felt truly impactful. Each character has depth, and you're given every reason to empathize with their motivations. If you're not chasing a particular ending, but simply following your moral compass, I think Triangle Strategy successfully challenges your convictions. I found myself locked into what I thought was a no-brainer, but then a party member would mention something I hadn't considered and left me like an indecisive squirrel in the street, not sure of which direction I should juke to avoid the car racing towards me. Sometimes I felt a sigh of relief as I narrowly dodged sure demise. Other times I was crushed by the weight of my decisions and left with a game over. I never expected to lose because of a choice I had made. Typically, games are always written to keep funneling the player to a similar outcome no matter what they choose, but Triangle Strategy succeeds in bucking that trend. There are exploration segments that ask the player to roam an area and speak with the people. In doing so, additional information is uncovered that will help you persuade your party members when making decisions together with the scales of conviction. We'll get to how those systems work in just a moment, but in this instance, I failed to gather enough information to persuade members of House Wolfort, and it left me with a game over. I never had that happen to me in a game before, and I think it's really special. I typically don't care much for the fantasy genre, but the characters and their motivations make Triangle Strategy an exception to that rule. There are a lot of story-focused segments that can last well over an hour, and I'm still in disbelief at how unbothered I was by that. In fact, I was blown away by the story in Triangle Strategy alone, but what raised the bar for me was how deeply the gameplay is connected with the branching paths of the story. Let me show you what I mean. Triangle Strategy's main driver in the gameplay department are these large tactical battles that last anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour. Outside of that, there are exploration segments and moments where the party uses the scales of conviction to decide the course of history for House Wolfort and all of Norzelia. The exploration segments allowed me to speak with civilians, soldiers, and people from all walks of life to gather information, listen to rumors, and uncover secrets, as well as discover items and collect currency to use in battle or purchase held items and upgrades. At first, I thought these sections of the game were shallow, but little did I know there was a depth I had not realized. Some folks in town may pretend to know nothing of what you're talking about, but someone else in town will tell you a rumor about how they heard so-and-so is hiding something in their house. If you go back and confront them, a piece of information might be found that changes the course of the game. Serenoa Wolfort is a great leader and consults his friends and house members before making any decision. He does so by making his case to each member, but ultimately they vote on what they feel to be the best course of action using the scales of conviction. Information gathered during the exploration segments unlocks dialogue options that may better persuade party members to consider your perspective, thus changing the course of the story. Personally, I tried not to manipulate the game in this regard. I decided what Serenoa wanted to do, but if I could not convince my house members, I let the pieces fall where they may. Despite going down a road I did not wish to pursue, I always found the story to still be interesting and rewarding, which is something I think Square Enix and Artdink should be immensely proud of, as that is no easy feat. Additionally, Serenoa's convictions determine the optional recruits made available to accompany you in battle. Convictions are strengthened by myriad decisions made by the player. You're unable to track your convictions until New Game Plus, but morality, utility, and liberty are your guiding principles. To give one example for each, talking with a large number of NPCs will strengthen your morality, deploying non-recommended party members into battle will increase your liberty, and selling items at shops will fortify your utility. Without knowing it, I seem to evenly distribute my convictions instead of following one in particular to maximize its benefits. However, I still found this system to be rewarding and fun despite not knowing the rhyme or reason during my initial playthrough. Before any battle, I'd take a moment to visit the House Wolfort encampment. Here, I could speak with party members, purchase items and resources with currency, or upgrades, special items, and information with kudos earned on the battlefield, as well as engage in mental mock battles with the barkeep. I use these brief moments to prepare for battle by upgrading my party members, stocking up on items, and ensuring my party members held items that best suited their strengths and weaknesses. The tactical battles in Triangle Strategy are incredibly engaging. There are 20 different party members to choose from, and the placement of the 9 to 10 units on the board is paramount. Some battles ask you to simply eliminate all opposing forces, while others ask you to do so while also defusing bombs, or to reach an extraction point with all party members, or eliminate the head honcho for victory. I found the battles to be quite difficult at times, but typically my preparation needed work or I was making fatal errors. For instance, simply leaving one of your units facing the wrong way could open them up to a critical attack, thus changing the course of the battle. Luckily, the experience earned carries over to the next attempt if you lose, so you always have the opportunity to brute force your way to victory in due time. Also, unit placement can be in your favor just as much as it can be the enemy's. There was a particular battle on a bridge that had 2 ladders on one side that led to balconies overlooking the bridge. I had my archers make their way to the top, right on the tile after the ladder so no one else could come up. I slowly picked apart the enemies while using my scout to lure them closer to the balconies. A strategy is a strategy, and I love that this game allows you to utilize anything that works. Overall, I found the gameplay in Triangle Strategy to be much deeper than I anticipated by incorporating core gameplay mechanics that deeply affect the story in areas of the game that could have been kept simple. The thought put into how gameplay harmonizes with the story is a triumph and should be commended. Square Enix and Artdink accomplished all that while also utilizing the beautiful HD 2D art style to present their strategic masterpiece. Let's take a closer look. Square Enix received high praise for Octopath Traveler for many reasons, but the debut of the beautiful HD 2D art style helped attract a lot of attention. Triangle Strategy is their second time around the block with this hybrid art style, and personally, I think it suits tactical RPGs spectacularly. Looking at the game, it invokes that classic 16-bit aesthetic, but move the right thumbstick and you now have an entirely new perspective to find secrets during exploration segments or strategic advantages during battles. HD 2D helps Triangle Strategy not only look beautiful, but triggers nostalgia for those that look back fondly on the RPGs of the 16-bit era, but also maintains its relevance in modernity. The pixel art for the characters and environments is wonderfully crafted. Each character appears unique and is immediately recognizable. The environments each have their own flavor and charm that feels lived in and is uniquely beautiful. Even the smaller details like a flag waving in the breeze, a candle flame flickering, or curtains swaying from an open window make no moment feel stagnant, even if you're just listening to exposition. Triangle Strategy is capped at 30 frames per second, but I did notice some frame rate fluctuations during certain segments of the game, despite having my Switch docked the entire time. The dips were most noticeable during the exploration segments where the character and camera could be moved freely and considerably faster than during battles or cutscenes. However, I noticed nothing game-breaking in terms of performance, just another reminder of the Nintendo Switch's age and increasingly apparent lack of power alongside the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series consoles. But what's a good tactical RPG without an amazing soundtrack? Triangle Strategy is no exception, and even features some solid English voice acting despite showcasing an unfortunate byproduct of the time in which the game was developed. Lend me your ear for just a moment longer, if you will. Video game soundtracks are either breathtaking or nothing to write home about, but luckily for Triangle Strategy, I would use the former to describe its Akira Senju composed soundtrack. The main theme, Our Path, is anthemic and suits the tone of the game perfectly. Specific regions and characters all have their own theme that immediately sets the tone and immerses you into the world. I swear you can close your eyes and know exactly where you are or who you're focusing on. An unfortunate downside to the audio is the recording quality of the English voice acting. No knock on the actors or their performances particularly, instead I think this area of the game showcases one of the telltale signs of a game made during the pandemic. I don't know if some of the voice actors were recording with different microphones or sometimes in a closet in their apartment and then not, but consistency in the quality of the recordings is an issue, albeit not a big one. It's just unfortunate. Ultimately, I can't knock the game for this, but felt it was worth pointing out. Recording quality aside, the dynamic high fantasy soundtrack is not one that I would find myself listening to on its own, but it complements the game fantastically, and just hearing the calm melodies of Frederica's Path will effortlessly take me back to my time with Triangle Strategy, a game I will look back fondly on for quite some time. With that, we can move on to my final thoughts and wrap up this review. I remember first seeing Triangle Strategy and not thinking I would enjoy it. A demo was released on the Nintendo Switch eShop, so I figured I would check it out, and I enjoyed what I played, but still didn't feel compelled to buy it. However, with the sequel to Breath of the Wild being delayed, I started to look at Triangle Strategy like it would be the biggest Nintendo Switch exclusive of 2022 outside of Pokemon Legends Arceus and Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, so I figured, what the hell, let's give it a try. I promise you that I am not being hyperbolic when I say my time with Triangle Strategy has been the most fun I've had with a game all year so far. The story and characters had me talking to the TV when certain events transpired, the gameplay had me fixated and meticulously strategizing, the art style captivated me, and the soundtrack transported me to Norzelia. As of right now, Triangle Strategy is my game of the year, and looking forward to games with confirmed release dates in 2022, I don't see anything usurping its place on the throne. In my humble opinion, despite the Switch holding back its performance in some aspects, Triangle Strategy is a solid 5 out of 5. I cannot recommend this game enough, and that is coming from someone with little to no experience with tactical RPGs. I always thought they just weren't aligned with my preferences, but Triangle Strategy proved me wrong in every conceivable way. Have you played Triangle Strategy? What do you think of it? Let me know in the comments below. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for your time and attention, it means the world to me. If you enjoy videos like this, you can show your support by subscribing to the channel and following me on Twitter at HitboxDetective. I make retrospectives, opinion pieces, and host/produce a weekly Nintendo-centric podcast called Me, Myself, and I. Additionally, I write for lordsofgaming.net. If you're looking for a website comprised of game enthusiasts that love video games and just want to write about them, look no further. lordsofgaming.net is the site for you. Again, thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you next time. Lead with love and stay hydrated.